Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this Town of Lincoln Council meeting of March 3rd, 2025 to order. And I will ask if you're able to stand for the national anthem, and if you're so motivated, we'll tolerate your singing.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I would like to begin by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate the council chambers to this door and obey all instructions given. If assistance is required, please see Madam Clerk. And once you've evacuated the building, gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Please ensure at this point that you place your cell phones on silent or turn them off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Council meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Closed captioning is available on all our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. The Town of Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandrock, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Regional Municipality of Niagara and the Town of Lincoln stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. Members of council are in attendance this evening, either in the chambers or on video, with regrets from Councillor Brunet. And we have staff in attendance this evening in person and remotely, as well as representatives from the Jordan Lions Minor Hockey Association. So welcome, young gentlemen, madam. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda? Are there any declarations of interest? Do members have any announcements? And please remember you have a limit of 3 items. Councillor Murray. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much, Mayor Easton. Last Friday, I was privileged to attend an opening of 2 new exhibits at our local local museum, the Jordan Museum and Cultural Center. All Abuzz, which is a display of the historic story of bees in our community, and Nesting Instinct, which is an art installation. It was a fascinating display, and I encourage everyone to go to our museum and check it out. You will not be disappointed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray, and thank you very much for attending. I had another event that I attended that evening, but I have been a bit under the weather the last month, and so there's a few of you that have been attending different events, and I appreciate, and the council appreciates your representing us. We have one proclamation we have Councillor Mikulik.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Thank
Go
you very
ahead.
much, Mary Easton. Just On Saturday, February the 8th, there was a 50th anniversary at the Jordan Arena. Well attended. I wanted to, we have a delegation here tonight, so I don't want to go on too long about it, but I just wanted to thank Shannon and her team, Stephanie and Lori, for the effort they made in making it a well-attended, informative, and just a nice opportunity for people to get together and see friends that they haven't seen in a while, from skating club, the Lions Club, the all sorts of clubs that have used that arena in the past. And I also want to thank my fellow councillors, Lynn Timmers and Councillor Brune, for their attendance as well. Thank you. And sorry, one more announcement. This is an announcement. Wednesday night, there's at 5 o'clock, there's going to be an EA, an environmental assessment for King Street from 19th Street to 23rd Street to talk about the valley, the road itself, what it might look like in the future, what it looks like now. And it's a drop-in format, but there is a presentation at 5:30 for anybody that uses that valley
Thank
to
you very
participate and
much.
provide input. Thank you.
Yeah, that's, these are always important, and this one's going to be particularly interesting. Thank you very much for representing council at the 50th anniversary. And when I read the newspaper article, I discovered that there were some pretty substantial commitments that have been made over many, many decades by people in the Jordan area. So thank you very much for drawing that to our attention. We have one proclamation this evening, being for International Women's Day, and I'll read that proclamation now. Whereas International Women's Day is globally celebrated on March the 8th with the aim of recognizing the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women while also advocating for gender equality. Whereas this day marks a call to action to engage with communities, celebrate the contributions of women, raise awareness of gender inequality, reflect on progress, and commit to positive actions while ensuring equality remains on the global agenda. Whereas the campaign theme for International Women's Day 2025 is Accelerate Action. This emphasizes the importance of taking swift and decisive steps to achieve gender equality, calling for increased momentum and urgency in addressing the systemic barriers and biases that women face both in personal and professional spheres. Whereas the town of Lincoln is committed to breaking down barriers, challenging stereotypes, and creating environments where all women are valued and respected. Accelerate Action is a worldwide call to acknowledge strategies, resources, and activities that positively impact the advancement of women and to support and elevate their implementation. Whereas by forging together for a more inclusive world for women and fostering diversity, we can build a more equitable and inclusive society for generations to come. Now therefore, I, Sandra Easton, Mayor of the Town of Lincoln, do hereby declare March the 8th, 2025 as International Women's Day. And I would add to that, Council, that, and this is not in any way meant to not recognize the contribution of men on this council and on staff. However, it is surprising sometimes when we look at the women in leadership positions here, the women that sit around this table, and I'm happy to say that having 4 women here is an unusual balance, and so it's very encouraging that we have achieved that. But we also have to produce collectively and individually. So it is important for us to draw this to everyone's attention, but also to take on the responsibility of functioning to the best of our ability with all of our colleagues. And so thank you very much for the opportunity to mention this. All right, we move on to item number 9, which is recognition and achievements, and we have none this evening. We move on to delegations and presentations, and it's so great this evening to have 3 young people. And, but as well, let me just go on to speak to their reason to being here, which is to present a gift to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the Jordan Arena. And Anna Cantoni is here. Anna is a member of the Jordan Lions Minor Hockey Association. She's from the executive committee, and she is here this evening along with players from the under 11 team, Francesco Cantoni and Gage Guerrero. Please come up and say a few words. And I'm expecting to hear from the short ones as well as the leader.
Good evening, honorable council members and Madam Mayor Easton. My name is Anna Cantoni, and I'm a volunteer with the Jordan Lions Minor Hockey Association. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be present at your meeting this evening. The Jordan Lions Minor Hockey Association has been an important institution for 50 years in the town of Lincoln. The association prides itself on good sportsmanship, respect for peers, coaches, parents, and community members. It also focuses on team and individual development, providing an opportunity for players to sharpen their game and forge bonds through our hockey program. More importantly, it builds friendships and memories that last a lifetime. We are honored to work together with the Jordan Lions Association and are the grateful benefactors of the hard work and dedication of previous trailblazers who continue to impact future generations. We look forward to strengthening this relationship and continue to feel the pride together for 50 years more and beyond. At this time, I would like to invite Madam Mayor, Francesco and Gage, members of our U11 Select Team, and present you with a gift in the honor of this golden anniversary. The Jordan Lions Minor Hockey Association would like to gift you this special edition retro jersey to mark this momentous occasion. We also have a special edition hockey puck for you as well.
Hang around for a while, you might learn something. And then you can say you've spent some time at the town hall in case you have a special paper that you have to write. Actually, you can leave whenever you want, but we love having an audience. All right, we're moving on now to the next item, which is item 10.2, and this is the regional councilor's report, but Councilor Foster's, it's unusual for him not to be here, but he isn't in attendance this evening, but he did provide a report. So he noted in his message, if there's any questions at all, to get in touch with him. If anybody wants to have those questions noted for the purposes of the recording, we can certainly do that. I don't see any names. Are we safe? Okay. All right. We'll move on now to a motion by Councillor Mikulik and seconded by Councillor Russell. The council receive and file for information the regional councillor update. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. Councillor Regima, can I get your vote, please?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Pachariva, you are also in favor. Okay, I will close that vote, and that carries. Thank you.
30% in favor.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Item 11 is items for consideration, and we have none this evening. We move on to item 12, which is a motion to approve the previous council minutes. And we're now considering item 12.1, council minutes of February the 3rd, 2025. Do members of council have any questions? There being none, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Pachariva. The council approved the minutes of the following meetings of council minutes of February 3rd, 2025. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Vote is now open. Councillor Regima, can I get your vote, please?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. And that carries.
That motion is carried. Item 13 is recommendations from standing committees, and we are considering the Committee of the Whole minutes of February 10th, 2025. Do members of council have any questions? I see none. I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer and seconded by Councillor Regima that council approve the following recommendations from standing committees, Committee of the Whole minutes of February 10th, 2025. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The vote is now open. Councillor Regima, I'll call upon you again.
Favor.
Thank you.
The motion is carried. The next item is item 14, which is notice of motion, and we are now considering item 14.1, a notice of motion brought forward by Councillor Anna Murray that will be introduced this evening, and we will seek an affirmative two-thirds vote for immediate consideration. And to that end, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers and seconded by Councillor Mikulik. Whereas Procedure Bylaw 2022-04 provides that notices of motion shall not be discussed or debated upon introduction, but shall be included on the next regular council meeting agenda for consideration. And whereas Section 7.8.5 of the Town of Lincoln Procedure Bylaw 2022-04 permits a notice of motion to be considered upon its introduction by an affirmative vote of two-thirds of the members present. And whereas it is deemed impractical or not in the best interest of the Town of Lincoln to delay consideration, therefore be it resolved that the pertinent rules contained in Section 7.8 of the Procedure Bylaw 2022-04 be waived to permit the introduction and consideration by council of the notice of motion on the council agenda pertaining to support for a Team Canada response to proposed U.S. tariffs. I'll now ask the clerk to call out the vote on that matter.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. Councillor Regima?
In favor, thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Mikulik? Oh, you got it? Okay. I'll close that vote. That carries.
Thank you. The motion is carried. And now, Councillor Murray, will you now provide your comments to the motion? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. Through you to the rest of council, in light of the announcements regarding tariffs and the disruption it will cause to our local and regional economy, Our Director of Economic Development and other senior staff have been working diligently with their counterparts over the last month to discuss the impacts of these tariffs and to develop a course of action in response. As a border community, these tariffs will have a major and immediate negative impact on our local businesses. In the Niagara region alone, as much as 73% of what we produce is exported to the United States. As a municipality, we have significant purchasing power. Our 2025 capital program alone is $18 million. While that may seem like a drop in the bucket in terms of overall spending across the country, it's not nothing. As noted in the motion, Ontario municipalities are expected to invest between $250 to $290 billion in infrastructure over the next 10 years. Acting in concert with other municipalities, we can have a voice in this dispute. We can support our local businesses. We can send a strong message and join with other municipalities across Canada in endorsing the federal and provincial call to buy Canadian. As we face the impact of these tariffs, it's more critical than ever for us as a municipality to carefully consider our procurement strategies. Prioritizing local businesses is not just a response to past and future trade policies, but a proactive approach to future-proofing our economy. By fostering local industry growth, we as a municipality can ensure that taxpayer dollars support job creation, economic resilience, and long-term stability within our community. With this in mind, as Chair of the Economic Development and Planning Committee, I, along with my Vice Chair, Mr. Pachariva, would like to introduce the motion that you see presented tonight. We appreciate your support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murray. I'll read the motion, and then I have comments that I will make to the motion. One is from a media release that's going to be coming out from the region, so it's a good tight fit with what you're recommending. And also further comments that came to me today from the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence Cities initiative, which is also very relevant and supports your motion. The motion reads, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray, seconded by Councillor Pachariva. Whereas the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has announced plans to impose a 25% tariff on Canadian goods, and whereas such tariffs could potentially lead to significant job losses and economic instability in both Canada and the United States, and whereas municipalities will be directly impacted by the potential economic fallout and wish to offer our support for a united Team Canada response. And whereas municipalities possess significant purchasing power through capital and infrastructure programs and investments, whereas the Town of Lincoln's capital program for 2025 is valued at $18 million, and whereas according to data from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, Ontario municipalities are expected to invest between $250 billion and $290 billion in infrastructure over the next 10 years. And whereas federal and provincial leaders are encouraging Canadians to buy Canadian, and whereas trade agreements have traditionally encouraged municipalities to provide equal opportunity to suppliers from countries that are parties to these agreements, and whereas municipalities can contribute to the Team Canada effort through procurement practices that comply with trade agreements and adhere to federal and provincial guidance. And whereas the Town of Lincoln Council has received the motion memorandum from the City of Burlington, ADM 0125, entitled Buy Canada Resolution, and a motion from the City of St. Catharines titled Tariffs, moved by Mayor Cisco and Councillor Phillips, approved on February 10th. And now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Lincoln Council stands with Team Canada in advocating for decision makers to recognize that tariffs harm both Canadian and American consumers and businesses, and be it further resolved that the Town of Lincoln Council endorses a collective effort involving all levels of government, federal, provincial, and municipal, to support the Canadian economy wherever possible through local campaigns and initiatives, and further resolve that the Town of Lincoln Council calls on the federal and provincial governments to collaborate with municipalities on measures that will protect Canadian consumers and businesses. And further resolved that the Town of Lincoln Council calls on the federal and provincial governments to work toward the removal of interprovincial trade barriers. Further resolved that the Town of Lincoln Council urges the federal and provincial governments to eliminate any barriers that would prevent municipalities from avoiding purchases from the United States should additional tariffs be imposed on Canadian goods. And be it further resolved that the town clerk forward this resolution to the following organizations, along with a request to endorse the same or a similar resolution: Prime Minister of Canada, Premier of Ontario, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Ontario Big City Mayors Caucus, Big City Mayors of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, Niagara MPs and MPPs, Niagara Region, local area municipalities. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote?
I think we have some questions. And I do know that Director Deanne does have a couple of comments, Mayor,
Okay.
before we do put it to a vote. Thank you.
Okay, and also, and we have councillors who have questions, so this is very appropriate. So first, Mr. Deanne, where is he? Oh, he's here. Thank you very much. Please go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to this. And, as members of council will know, obviously, the tariff situation is quite concerning from an economic development perspective. And ever since these first came about back in January, we have been meeting as Team Niagara, my colleagues around the region from an economic development perspective, on the tariffs and how, we as both the region and local municipalities can help respond and provide a response to a Team Canada approach. As members of council will know, obviously our policy levers at both the municipal and the regional level are limited. However, there are things that we can do, and advocacy and communication and providing data are one of those things that we can and must do. So here in Lincoln, we have approximately 96 exporters representing roughly around 4,000 jobs that fall under those businesses. Some of our top exporters in Lincoln are Moira Debo, Opart Technologies, of course, on the agricultural side, Hendricks Greenhouses and Freeman Herbs, just to name the top few, Bayview Flowers as well. So we have been conducting regular communications with our various sectors. We have been advocating both at the provincial and the regional level and federal level for support. We do have some upcoming roundtables where we're going to be speaking with our sectors just to learn about what we can do to provide some of those support and how it's going to affect them. And also we are working on a Shop Local, Support Local campaign that will be rolling out fairly soon. And as I'd mentioned, meeting regularly with our colleagues around the table. So, this motion is perfectly timed, as we saw in the news today. It sounds like the tariffs are coming into effect at midnight tonight. And so we look forward to advocating on behalf of our businesses. And I know the CAOs have been meeting on this as well, so I do perhaps turn to the CAO to make some additional comments. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deanne. Councillor Russell, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, a couple questions. First to either our CAO or to Charlotte. I think she was online as well. Just wondering if we get some insight into, if it's possible, how much we source from the U.S. in terms of dollars on a yearly basis, if that's an amount that is well known or known at all.
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor, I can look into that for you. We've been mostly focused on trying to look at our existing and our upcoming procurements in terms of just trying to figure out what kind of position that places us in. But I can look into that historically for you.
Okay, thank you. And second question, Madam Mayor, through you. Maybe to Director Graham. As far as our vendors go that handle our infrastructure projects, any idea on what, if any, that they source from the States? And would there be a requirement going forward that future vendors on future projects, again, depending on how long these tariffs last, would be required to also apply or stick with our policy on buying Canadian?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, a lot of the products that you might think about being U.S.-based would be some of the pipe-type products, like PVC pipe, high-density type materials like that. We as a team have kind of looked at our existing contracts and risks, and we're in good shape that way. But it is something we are speaking about in terms of procurement and what are we looking at moving forward with Canadian suppliers versus U.S.
Okay. And last question, Madam Mayor. Any idea, either to Director Graham or to Charlotte, how this will impact, again, not knowing how long it's going to go, as mentioned, how it will impact future projects that we do in terms of dollars? Like, are we looking at an increase in potential costs? If something was going to cost 10, now it could be 12 and a half. Any insight yet into ramifications?
Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. I'm not sure I can quantify for you. What I've been seeing so far is basically an indication that, like, for example, the Bank of Canada is predicting that there could be inflation from something like tariffs. We've never really had something like this exactly as it's coming across. There were tariffs a few years back, specifically on steel and aluminum, but so it kind of depends on what is done in response to the US tariffs as well. So if they bring tariffs into place and then if other countries respond with tariffs, that would impact it. So we just don't have that information at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Do you have anything, Mr. CAO, that you would add at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think specific to the councilor's question, I don't, other than to suggest that CAOs are having a meeting on Friday with respect to tariffs and the recent changes. So we know that there's going to be a significant impact. How much it's going to impact operations, budgets, our local economy, I think it's still something we're trying to ascertain. Are we going to look at increased costs for imported goods and services that potentially, I think to Councillor Russell's point, affect future projects? Maybe. And so I think we need to be monitoring those changes, adjusting our financial planning if and when these issues do have an impact on us, and then working closely with our suppliers to mitigate potential impacts, which we're already having those conversations. And so I think transparency is going to be key here. We're going to keep our residents and council informed as we navigate these times together.
Very good. Thank you very much. And now we'll move on. Councillor Mikulik, please.
Thank you very much. Through you to our Director of Finance, similar to, like, my train of thought is similar to Councillor Russell's, but like I'm going to go to a specific capital project that we approved, and that's fire trucks. Fire trucks, they cost $1 million. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure we approved a couple this past October. So I'm reading in the media about Doug Ford canceling contracts and this and that and the other thing. Like, how serious are we about this Buy Canadian strategy? Are we willing to cancel a contract on these fire trucks? Because again, it's also the dollar that we had discussions on the dollar at the same time with respect to these sorts of purchases that are made with the U.S.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. It depends a little bit where we're at in terms of the procurement contract and what the cost of something like a cancellation would be. So at this stage, that's not, we have looked at our existing procurements, and I don't think there's anything we're looking at in that regard. It does look like it's impacting the exchange rate, although there's many factors that impact exchange rates. We did put into our U.S. bank account a portion of the cost to help offset against any potential changes in exchange rates, not the full amount, because I think we talked about it at the time that it is a project that's funded through debenture, but we did try to put some away. So when you see our financial statements for 2024, you'll see an exchange on that US currency. So those are the actions that we've taken to date.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear that we did apportion some money towards the US dollar, at least half the purchase or whatever we could, to hedge both bets. Follow-up question to that is, would a 25% tariff apply to purchases that are not in our possession yet? Could this purchase possibly be inflated by 25% tariff? Or do we not know that yet?
I just want to clarify something. Are you talking about where the purchase has been requested and it's been accepted and they're preparing it? Is that the status?
And
that you're referring
we've
to?
not taken possession.
And we haven't taken possession, okay. Do you have an answer to that question? Either of you?
So through you, Mayor, to the councillor, I mean, one thing is that currently what we know of is the potential of the tariffs being implemented in the States, which will apply to goods that are being imported into the States from Canada. So what we have to be focused on in terms of our purchases is, are there responsive tariffs from other countries that might impact our cost of goods? And so at this point in time, we don't have that information in terms of what might be in response and whether that would impact something like that truck.
Okay, thank you. I'm just, that's a question in response to what the Canada's planned response is to have counter tariffs. So that's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mayor, to the councillor, I think part of the challenge is, I mean, I think last week I saw two different answers on two different nights about what was what was planned on the US side. So we are looking into all of this. We are sitting in meetings, as the CAO said, as the Director of Public Works said, and the Director of Economic Development and Communications. So we're doing the best that we can to navigate a changing situation.
Perfect. No, I think it's important that our American friends also know that there's a lot of these sorts of projects and a lot of these big ticket items that are in the queue that haven't been taken possession of yet. So I see our CAO has his hand up.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and I think some of these questions will have to be asked more than once. I see your hand up, Mr. CAO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to members of council, just, I did receive a little bit of an update very recently from various fire providers, and I think to Charlotte's point, we're gonna have to see what the retaliatory tariffs that potentially the Canadian government puts forward and imposes, and what effect those will have. I think as Charlotte indicated to you, the current tariffs imposed by President Trump and the 25% on imports from Canada aren't going to impact fire trucks. What we need to look at are the 155 billion, I think, worth of U.S. goods that have been announced. And as of now, there's no indication that fire trucks or their major components are included in the lists of goods subject to these retaliatory tariffs. But I think it is one of those continued wait and see, and we're going to keep both the public and council, I think, as updated as we are.
Thanks very much. I'm moving on to Councillor Timmers. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mayor Easton. So I'm just looking for some clarification. I'm kind of going down the same line as Councillor Russell, and I hope I'm not repeating anything, but so in one of the bullets, this is a very involved motion. One of the bullets, we're urging the federal and provincial governments to eliminate any barriers that would prevent municipalities from avoiding purchases from the United States. So I guess I'm looking for a little clarity on our procurement and purchasing policies. Is there anything in our policies that would prevent us from not purchasing American products or services? Or do we need to wait for these barriers to be lifted?
Mr. CAO, I'm going to turn to you because and you can send it where it needs to go, but I'm going to start with you.
So, Your Worship, I did to members of council, I did see Charlotte gleefully want to, I think, start that question because we've had this conversation and she has the answer, but I can supplement it if needed.
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Excuse me. Through you, Mayor, to the councillor. So our procurement policy really does require us to be in compliance with certain trade agreements. And it really has the goal of obtaining, I would say, the best price regardless of where something is purchased from. So what we're trying to be mindful of is being in compliance with those trade agreements and in compliance with the procurement policy. But at the same time, the challenge being how the United States of America is carrying out those trade agreements. And so then what the impact would be on us in responding. So for example, we may have other countries that we might purchase goods from that are not in the United States, that are not implementing tariffs on us right now, where we may not want to avoid them, for example, because they may be a good trade partner. So, I mean, essentially, yes, at present, our procurement policy would require us to consider all suppliers within the, like, as long as there's not a barrier to that that's been established by the government, by the federal or provincial governments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mary Easton.
Councillor Russell, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just not a question, just one quick amendment I'd like to throw out there. Just because we're in the weird and odd situation where our federal government is prorogued and our prime minister is transitioning to a new, again, to retirement at some point. I'm wondering if we can include, there's a bullet point in there that we're going to be copying the Prime Minister of Canada on this motion. I wonder if we can also include it in that same point or the point below it, the heads of the federal parties as well. Just so that, again, who knows what's going to happen with the eventual election, just to make sure that everybody has the same information.
That was duly noted, and Madam Clerk will look after that. Thank you very much. All right, as I noted, I have a couple of documents here that I received today. One is a media release that's going to be sent out by the regional chair. And I'll just read you a small portion of it so you get a sense of the tone of it. The chair says that all of our councillors are working alongside our economic development staff to advocate directly with the federal and provincial governments for supports that meet the unique needs of Niagara's economy through organizations like the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Mayors and Regional Chairs of Ontario, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And we continue to work productively with our counterparts in the state of New York, including through the Border Mayors Alliance, to develop joint advocacy efforts. We're also working to directly support our local businesses through Support Local campaigns, which we read about that through the BIA today, reviews of municipal procurement policies, and also through the Great Lakes cities to support industries, the Great Lakes cities. But also there was a particular note that was submitted to the chair that we also support the development of industries that will process our own resources into finished goods. And so, you know, when you begin to discuss this, it just becomes bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of how some of those barriers will be handled. So this is document that I'll be signing along with my colleague mayors, and this will go out soon. The city's initiative goes back to the piece in the motion, which refers to the amount of money, the allocation of monies that are expected to be invested, 250 billion and 290 billion in infrastructure over the next 10 years across the province. And the memorandum that has now come out from the cities initiative speaks to a number of projects that, regardless of tariffs, need to take place, because if they don't, they will be operating against the well-being, I wouldn't use the word environmental, because I think that language will be changed with this current president, but they're looking at things, for example, like fast-tracking infrastructure projects, so that any projects that would have invested in freshwater ports and rail infrastructures are given consideration, and because we still, regardless, have to reduce congestion, strengthen supply chains, and make sure that everything is working accordingly. The second note is that we fund our needed water systems upgrades, which hasn't been a problem in Lincoln, but certainly if there isn't money that's being invested on either side of the line, this is not in our best interest. It's not in the best interest of our community. And if you live in the United States, where there's a great deal of issue around lead in pipes and the initiatives that were implemented in the last presidency, that's a problem. Protecting our communities and our housing stock and our businesses by supporting measures to enhance shoreline resilience. And we have some projects that are now on the docket for receiving funding, and we certainly want to make sure that flood mapping is kept up to date. And these are initiatives that we can't just put aside. Our countries have to continue to run, our communities have to continue in a way that is looking after the health and well-being and the population health of our communities. It includes protecting the financial asset of 1.5 million Canadians who live in high-risk floodplains by setting up a publicly funded flood insurance program. And we heard that the government is considering special funding, and we don't know whether that source is federal or provincial, but that, again, has been identified as a risk and as a need. Upholding our binational commitments and safeguarding the health of the foundational resource of our regional economy, our fresh water, by maintaining the historic funding for fresh water. I just read on the weekend, as I was preparing for an interview today, the status of Lincoln. We did not have one main break in our water lines. That doesn't happen because you ignore them. That happens because you look after things when you should. It also pointed out the number of tests that were done. I think it was something like about 186, and the concerns that were raised on those 186 tests were zero. That doesn't happen because you ignore your infrastructure. So this is just to give you an example. The document also says that the city's initiative has been advocating against the Trump administration tariffs, and I'm saying to you that this is on both sides. These are binational meetings that I'm attending. But should tariffs and retaliatory measures be implemented, that the federal government should work with municipalities to shelter the local businesses, but also the city's fiscal capacity to support their community. I am very, very pleased that we are dealing with this motion tonight. I want to reinforce that Mr. Deaney and his staff are also assisting us with conversations, as you well know, with our sectors, and we're going to be having a particular meeting again with Greenhouse, not so that we can tell them how to solve their problems, but so that we can listen and learn more about what their problems are and find out, if necessary, where we need to step in and initiate discussions from over the border. Do we need to include any of our consular staff in doing that? There will be a great deal to be learned as we move forward on this. So I don't have any other questions. Thank you very much for allowing me to add those comments to the motion. I have, the motion, as you know, has been presented by Councillor Anna Murray, and seconded by Councillor Pachariva. Madam Clerk, would you please call out the vote? I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, with the amendment of adding the, as Councillor Russell mentioned, the members of.
I have that added, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Thank you very
All
much.
federal parties, thank you. All federal party leaders, and the vote is now open, thank you. Councillor Rajima, can I call upon your vote, please?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. And I will close that vote. And that carries, Madam Mayor.
Great, that motion is carried. Good, and thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for the great work, and Madam Clerk, for any involvement, that you and any other staff had. This was a very complex initiative. We move on now to item 15, which is a report of municipal officers, and I have a few items to add to those that I assigned to that motion, because I felt they were more appropriately assigned there. I'll go back to the beginning of January, which is, I wasn't at council the last time, but I attended on your behalf the Lincoln Seniors annual swearing in of executive, and just want to impart to you that the Lincoln Seniors is a very robust organization. They certainly don't seem to have any problem finding executive members, although it's often the same people sitting in the seats. They have an extremely busy agenda, and so they move forward. They didn't talk about pickleball at the meeting, but I did check to see whether or not it was being heavily subscribed. On January the 15th, I had a meeting with members of Walker Brothers Quarry. I was interested, some members of staff attended with me. We were interested in knowing and having an update on the activities in the quarry on Fly Road, and what plans they had according to provincial policy. If that quarry were not operating, it is getting near the end of its time. So there'll be more to report in that area, hopefully. I attended on January the 20th, the Roma Conference, with a number of you and delegations with the MTO, the Ministry of Infrastructure, and also the Ministry of Health, and I believe that they have all been well documented through our normal media. On January the 23rd, I requested, and Councillor Rajima, the Deputy Mayor Rajima, and Councillor Murray attended a special meeting with the Great Lakes cities that was being held at the same time in Toronto. And not only did it provide them with a broader understanding of the work of the Great Lakes, it was very important for the town of Lincoln because the discussion was around shoreline erosion. I don't know, did either of you report on this at the council meeting? Because I don't want to. Thank you very much, Councillor Rajima. So, as you know, there's now continuity that's been carried over to the Great Lakes Cities Initiative and the federal outreach, ensuring that these matters do not fall off the agenda. It's been well documented now that the design award was presented to the town of Lincoln, and for the Jordan Village. Was that reported at the meeting? Excellent, all right. So I also participated with the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Kirkopoulos, in the HHS strategic plan. And they, of course, are moving on, not surprisingly, now that West Lincoln is coming along. They also have a new president. And so we were pleased to be involved in that discussion and to have some input, because we still certainly have an interest in what's happening at West Lincoln, and so we were tying our comments and your priorities into that discussion. February 7th was the politicians' breakfast, and I attended along with the other levels of government, and we had a number of questions. A number of you attended that. On February the 18th was the candidates' meeting, and of course, that's old news now because Mr. Osterhoff was returned to his position. So we'll have to wait now and see whether he's part of the cabinet, and I already have requested a meeting to be set up with him, as I want to have a discussion with him about the Go Precinct. February 19th, I attended a potluck dinner. It was an annual Scout banquet. I have to tell you, I am always constantly amazed at how big these things are. There were 120 attending. There's close to 100 members of, on the Beamsville and Vineland Scouts. The performance of those young men and women is really exemplary. It's no different than what we saw tonight with these young people coming forward and being part of the processes in our community. And so I just, Councillor Timmers and I are both Scouters, so we sometimes have to iron up our ties so that we don't look too shabby when we go. But at any rate, it's great to be involved with them. I appreciate very much being invited, and certainly worth our time. On February 25th, I attended with members of the staff the Big Brothers Big Sisters bowling. I'm happy to say that I held up the entire lower platform. They're just great bowlers, and I was just, you wouldn't have been impressed. You're going to have to start coming out, some of you who are better bowlers. On the 27th was the State of the City for Mayor Cisco, the State of the City of St. Catharines, and we certainly got the story of what's happening at St. Catharines, and unfortunately, there's a heavy, heavy burden in the area of homelessness, and he spoke to that at great length. But also, a good deal was said about many other very significant positive initiatives that are also, because I think their initiatives around homelessness are positive as well, that are going on in the city, and it was an excellent turnout. On the 28th of February was the Ag Policy, which is a regional meeting that I attend, and there were a number of discussions that took place, one on a study that's on Councillor Reimer, you'll be interested in. There's now a deliberate study that's going on that Vineland Research and Innovation Center is involved in, and that is on soil health. And so I'm very, very pleased that work is being done in this area. One of the ways that we can respond in the longer term, in terms of tariffs, is to make sure that we have our farmland in production, and then, as was added to earlier to the media release from the chair, to make sure that when you increase your productivity levels, that you actually have a place to send those products, and then you can get a further value chain end result. So there's going to be all kinds of decisions made around things like that. Today, I attended this afternoon the fundraising meeting that happens from time to time, but I'm not sure how many of you know about it. That I just want to raise your consciousness about the fundraising effort for the Rittenhouse Library, and so that is coming along, and we're starting to move into more of a formalized process, and the town has been asked to make a contribution. So I think that's good enough, and if you have any questions about any of those projects or initiatives, let me know, and that's the end of my report. Thank you. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Russell and seconded by Councillor Reimer that council receive and file as information the following mayor's report. And Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. Councillor Rajima, may I call upon your vote, please?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillors,
So we're just still waiting for those to log their votes? Okay.
Oh.
Can I ask,
is the system not working, Madam Clerk?
it's just their,
Your
and
system's
that
not-
carries, thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion is carried. All right, now we'll move on to item 16, which is confidential matters, of which we have none. And then we'll move on, I just wanted to get my notes.
Madam Mayor, I have been informed that Councillor Rajima has a conflict to bylaw. It's item number 17.4 on the agenda, and it's bylaw 2025-08.
08, okay.
And we'll vote upon that, we'll leave that separate vote,
Okay, do you want to do that one first?
but we'll ask Councillor Rajima to speak to that conflict. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Njima? Could you?
Thank you. I have an interest under item 17.4 on the agenda, bylaw 2025-08. My interest is related to this bylaw to assume the lands for public highway purposes, so I won't be taking part. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, let's start with 2025-08. I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Russell, that bylaw 2025-08, a bylaw to lay out and dedicate certain lands for public highway purposes as part of the Cherry Heights Extension Plan of subdivision and to assume the municipal services located therein.
That's right, Madam Mayor, would you like me to?
Any questions at all? Nothing? All right. Would you open the vote
I
then,
sure
Madam
will,
Clerk?
And that vote is now open. Thank you. Perfect. And I will close that vote. That carries, Madam Mayor.
Okay, I have a motion. We're going to deal with the rest of them. Okay, I'm just looking here. I have a motion, where is this? Oh, here we are, okay. I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachuriva and seconded by Councillor Timmers, that leave be given to approve the following bylaws: 2025-05, 06, 07, and 05 is a bylaw to amend bylaw 2020-42, being a bylaw to designate the property known municipally as 4105 Fly Road, Camden, being part of Lot 9, Plan M14, former Township of Clinton, now in the Town of Lincoln, as being a place of architectural, historical, and/or contextual value or interest. I have bylaw 2025-06, a bylaw to lift a 0.3 meter reserve and authorize the reconveyance of lands to the Town of Lincoln. And I have bylaw 2025-07, a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of lands to 2410002 Ontario, Inc. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and the vote is now open. And I will close that vote.
I'm in favor, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. One. Thank you, that carries.
Thank you very much. The motion is carried. We move on now to item 14, which is a motion to confirm proceedings of the council meeting. And I have a motion moved by Councillor Ranjima, seconded by Councillor Mikulik, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 2025-09, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held Monday, March 3rd, 2025, being read a first, second, and third time, and that bylaw number 2025-09 be enacted and passed, and that the mayor and clerk sign and seal the said bylaw. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
And it's open, thank you.
I'm in favor, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And I will close that vote. That carries, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. That motion carries, and we move on to item 19, which is council remarks. And Councillor Mikulik, I understand that you have comments to the CAO. Would you like to go ahead? Just a moment. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Through you to our CEO. Last, was it February 26th, I read a newspaper article with regards to the transit NRT and the potential for a strike after 87% of workers voted against their first labor contract. The headline and the information didn't really say a lot from, the Transit Commission's perspective. It says specialized transit. I'm trying to identify what specialized transit is. Is it all the on-demand transit? Is it just the wheelchair aspect? I'm trying to get a definition of what specialized transit is.
You want to start with that?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. CAO, can you help us? I don't know whether I don't know if you had prior knowledge of the question or not. Do you have a response for Councillor Mikulik?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Mikulik and I did briefly chat about this a few days ago. And specialized transit, the councillor is correct, speaks, and Councillor Tactoriva probably has the definitions at his fingertips, but does speak very specifically to not the on-demand service that we have, but the service that provides transit trips to those with they're different vehicles. I want to say certain physical disabilities, certain an inability to use conventional or the on-demand service. So it is the more specialized one. I did commit to Councillor Mikulik that I would get a further update this Friday and share with members of council what the contingency plans actually are for that. Because that is a segment of our population that is highly serviced by specialized transit in terms of getting back and forth to doctor's appointments. Again, where physical challenges or physical impediments will allow them to take other forms of transit.
Thank you. We did exchange some correspondence, and I'm just concerned about being so early in the negotiations with just this contract, what it looks like in the future with other contracts, first contracts, and I feel like we have to have a position on this as a council as far as what is affordable for, what are we willing to pay? We saw the increase that we had just with the first year of it. So
Councillor, these are fair questions. However, we have a representative that sits on that committee. The board meets, and the board makes decisions which come to the regional council. And so direction is given as a result of those reports, and this is exactly what happened during the budget process. I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I believe that I understood that Councillor Tactoriva, and please speak to this, that you would be bringing regular information to council. If I'm not correct, then just let me know. And Councillor, you come off, and then I'll put you back on. Okay, go ahead, Councillor
Yeah,
Patrick.
thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, and if it helps, I can forward our approved agenda minutes to the clerk, so we can circulate them through council. With respect to that item, Councillor Michalek, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't on the radar. We didn't hear anything about it. So let me follow up and get you an answer. Like our CAO said, it's probably the Wheel-Trans, but let me look further into it. And part of the issue is, again, is they're bringing all of these separate services together and trying to bring them in-house and do a contract. So that's maybe where some of the push-pull is, but I don't want to speculate, but let me ask. It's a simple email that I can fire. And in the future, if you have questions like that, copy me right on the start, and I can get the answers for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Thank
guess,
I just want to see who's got this help.
I see you have your hand up, Mr. CAO.
Yeah,
Please go
I
ahead.
do, Madam Mayor. So if my comment was misconstrued as I wasn't sure if a specialized transit meant residents with disabilities who are using a specialized transit service in Niagara, that's exactly what I was referring to. And so that clarification doesn't need to be sought. I think the clarification that I hope to get this Friday, following the meeting that the CAOs will be having, of which Niagara Transit is on, is where things stand in terms of collective bargaining, any of those agreements, and what are the contingency plans should we find ourselves in a strike position on a service that I think is very important to our community and to those residents with disabilities in our community. So just clarifying, so that's what specialized transit refers to. It is not just the term used for the on-demand service. We have a general on-demand service, which is our NRT service provided to our community, and then specialized transit is a transit service that every municipality across the region gets. But they're specific vehicles. They are shared rides similar to the on-demand service, but they're for residents with disabilities.
Thank you very much. Councillor Michalek, do you have anything further that you'd like to add?
Just a clarification.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, this being, thank you for that answer, and both Councillor Patrieva and our CAO. I just, this is relatively new. This is a whole new thing where we have a commission that is managing a service on our behalf, and we have a representative on that commission, which is Councillor Patrieva. But I'm just curious, like how, and this is with process, like how does Councillor Patrieva, we all forward our questions and our concerns, but how does our representative, how does he know how council feels about this whole thing, or what our position is on this transit to weigh in at a meeting? I'm just trying to understand that process. Like what does that look like at a transit commission meeting where Councillor Patrieva is representing council with the concerns that we have? Be it positive or negative.
I would start, Councillor, by going back to the triple majority vote that we participated in, which gives authority to a representative to act on our behalf at that meeting. Now, it may be that we want to have some more discussion about that, but we're not going to do that tonight.
No.
But it's fair that.
It's just for the future.
Absolutely. So let's work with, let's see what Mr. Kirkopoulos finds out at the meeting on Friday. And then we'll begin to look at the process, because the triple majority does give the authority to our representative to make decisions on our behalf, based on the fact that when we made that decision, we had certain information at our disposal. And so we voted ourselves into that process. So let's begin with that, and then we'll see where else we need to go, if we need to go anywhere.
Thank you very
Fair
much.
enough? Okay,
I just
thank you
want
very
to,
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. Anybody else that has any comments that they want to add? No? All right, we'll move on to item number 20. I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer, seconded by Councillor Russell, that the council meeting on March the 3rd, 2025 be adjourned at 19:17 hours, and I will now ask the clerk to open the vote.
The vote is now open. Councillor Rajima?
In favor, thank you, Julie.
Thank you. And that carries, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
All right, the motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And this concludes our council meeting for this evening, and thanks for those of you that came and were here and joined us in the audience. It's always good to have viewers. Good night, everyone.